This is what I have been saying since the beginning.
Right.
And you are an eyewitness of how I was firm in my stand that I did not want to differentiate between political Islam and Islam, because Islam itself is a problem, and the jihadists around the globe, not only Hamas or the Palestinian factions, but also the Islamists all around the globe, are inspired by the Quranic text, by the Hadith. Now, I personally don't know if Muhammad ever existed, or if he actually existed. I don't know the account or the narrative based on his life is an accurate account. There is no way for scientists, there's no way for historians to actually find a legitimate source that can validate this Muhammad. And even if he was true, I don't have a problem with Muhammad if I put him in the context of his culture of the 7th century Arabia, a brutal culture where killing baby girls was a normal thing because the society was ashamed of that. It was a brutal culture based on slavery, based on human trafficking, killing baby girls, worshiping idols, paganism, and people did not know how to write, did not know how to read, total ignorance. So if I to accept Muhammad, I would accept him in that culture, in the context of that of his environment, and I don't have a problem with Muhammad, but I have a problem with those who project their sick ego, whatever that suits them, on this prophet. And they are willing to go as far as they want in their aggression, in their assault against religions, and not only Judaism, also Christianity. The Crusades did not come just out of the blue. There was a huge Islamic assault on the West and on the East. They took humanity to slavery. They stole the intellectual property of every civilization. They conquered, they killed, they destroyed, they raped. Every woman, every child was considered as a booty. And this is basically the Quranic text. You can look into Surah Al-Anfal. What is Al-Anfal? It's the booty surah. There is like a giant chapter, maybe 5% of the Quran, that discuss how the booty should be divided between the Muslims, because there was a big conflict between the Muslims, who gets what, who gets more, who gets less. So now, if this is in the Quran, then we have a big problem. And the problem of people who think that they have monopoly over the truth, that the biggest statement in the Islam, that there is no divinity but Allah and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. There is no divinity. The God of Abraham, this is the God of the Bible, this is all corruption. The creator of the universe, of all mankind, of this diverse world that we live in, is Allah. And this Allah has a problem with the Jewish people. Why? Because they would have been disobedient, and hence they fell from his grace. And now the Muslims have the right to punish them for eternity and punish all the non-Muslims who don't obey or submit to this Allah, which nothing but an ego projection, a hypothetical entity that is so flexible that can project hundreds of millions of egos. Anybody can just do whatever they want, project whatever they want. They can be peaceful in the morning, but in the evening they can be a rapist by the name of the same God. So now we have a big problem. If we are talking about human delusion, this is the deepest level of human delusion, and it's very dangerous. So we need to address the problem the way it is. And of course, I understand the sensitivity that the Jewish people are a small minority, and they cannot just have an open front against a major religion of close to 1.6 billion Muslims. It's suicidal. And this is not the Jewish attitude. This is not the Jewish way. But at least this is what I've been saying, that by bringing the truth, and I'm not saying to go confront the Muslims, but at least explain that, guys, there is a scripture out there that mentions the Jewish people by the name. It's not saying the Hindus, but it's specifically focusing on the Jewish people as ethnic group, as a religion. When the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, and even the atheists, the rest of the world understand that this assault committed on October 7 did not just come because of dispute over land. It's not a conflict, a political conflict. There is a religious dimension to it. then at least it would be a much easier to unify the rest of humanity, which is the majority of mankind, to say at least that this is not acceptable. I don't want a religious war. Actually, I'm trying to end the religious war by pointing out the root cause of this problem. It has been 1400 years of an assault, did not start on October 7th. 1400 years of ethnic cleansing that is documented by the Islamic books. So at least we need to help the Muslims, the majority of the Muslims who are just nominal Muslims, to say, it's like, do you agree to that? And if they don't agree to it, then they need to stand firmly and clearly and say, we don't have a problem with the Jewish people. But instead, since October 7, give me one respectful Islamic institution or a high-profile Islamic leader that stepped forward and said, this is completely rejected, not only as a political stand, but also as scripture, as a holy scripture that does not represent that individual or that institution. But unfortunately, most of the Muslims who know their scripture, they know that the hatred springs from the Quran that they recite 5 times a day on the loudspeakers in all the major cities. So this is where it gets frustrating, and for me, I get tense when I talk about it because there is no other mean for me to express it. I have been saying this for 15 years, and it looks like people are not paying attention or just in denial for whatever reason is. It's our responsibility, because if this goes on like this, Israel, with respect, is not just it's not the Jewish people during the Nazi era. Israel is a superpower with a nuclear capacity that can wipe out the Islamic world if necessary. So why mess with that? It is not going to be a repetition of the Holocaust that happened 100 years ago. So the outcome of this stupidity, of this madness, trying to ethnically cleanse the Jewish people, will lead to a total destruction of mankind. So why everybody is testing that? Why everybody wants to go, and it looks like everybody's pushing in this direction where we say, no, just outlaw Hamas, remove them from power, apologize to the Jewish people, drop the stupid verses in your Quran. I don't care. Drop it. This is madness, and have some responsibility. The world existence depends on diversity, and the Jewish people are a blueprint. Nobody has the authority to remove them from the domain of consciousness. No one, not the Muslims, not the Christians, not no one else. So with that said, people need to understand how serious is this. Palestinians should not be rewarded for their violence. That's first of all. And even if there was a proposal for a Palestinian state in the past, doesn't mean that it's valid now, because it was based on good faith that there was a peace partner. But even Yasser Arafat and the PLO, which they only gained legitimacy out of the Oslo Accords, they did not fulfill their responsibility. In fact, they just got legitimacy and they continued their violent way. They intensified. They actually encouraged Hamas to do violence during the Second Palestinian Intifada. And today, they haven't condemned Hamas. And today, they exploit the situation through their embassies, through their big, giant diplomatic operation globally, inciting against Israel, funding the BDS, funding the pro-Palestine, funding the anti-Israel movement around the world, using the United Nations podium to delegitimize Israel, to spread lies of apartheid, of colonialism, of genocide, not standing and telling the truth. No, because they know that this is not what Israel is doing. So what peace partner are we talking about? And if there is no peace partner, then on what basis this two-state solution would happen? Or do they mean a Palestinian state on the rubble of Israel as a replacement, a Palestine that depends on the destruction of Israel? And where do they want to place it? The whole country, I can cross it from east to west in less than 45 minutes. Where do they want to fit this second elephant? And who's going to do it, and at what expense? And why Israel is actually obligated to give what's so-called a state to no people? Because what's so-called Palestinians is not an ethnic group, is not a nation. It was never a country. It did not have ownership to the land. So why all this divided, conflicted political gangs with so many extreme political views without leadership and without actually a goal and with zero legitimacy that they feel entitled that Israel need to give up its security, its territory, and its future that becomes dependent on this entity. Who is in his right mind would agree to something like this? So basically, you can say goodbye to the two-state solution. The two-state solution is very similar to a two-husband solution, okay? And that's not possible, especially with this attitude that they are out there to rape and kidnap and destroy by the means of intimidation and blackmailing and deception and manipulation. No one in his right mind would agree to that. I wouldn't agree to it. So we have an Arab people. Okay, this is an ethnicity. I don't know even if they qualify for as ethnic group, but let's say at least Arab makes a lot more sense than Palestinian, because Palestinian just an ideology. It's a mental illness, and now all the mentally ill around the globe join in the chorus. They're loving it. It suits them very well because they can just do whatever they want at the expense of hardworking people who earned a state. So this is nonsense. And the Arabs who live in that area, Israel has about 2 million of them. If they want to live peacefully and respect the existence of Israel, respect the Jewish people as the natives of that land, that they have the historic right, that they've been throughout the centuries, throughout the millennia in that land, with overwhelming artifacts, archaeology, evidence, currency, Bibles, scriptures, as long as they're in denial in that, then there is going to be a problem. So they need to get themselves educated that this is the reality. And this whole anti-Zionist, it's nothing but anti-Semitic and nothing but anti-Jewish. And it's just another level of denial that the Jewish people have been ethnically cleansed by the Muslims, by the Ottoman Empire. Before that, by all the Islamic forces that came out of Arabia. And the connection of the Jewish people to this land is eternal. And it is not only about land, it's about the spirit, it's about the memory, it's about the collective achievement of the Jewish people in that part of the globe. So, and plus the Jewish people, even in the modern Israel, they did not steal the land. It was natural, it was legal migration, and it came under the supervision of the superpowers of that time. People bought the land, people developed the land, they built it again from scratch. So all this claim of colonialism and stealing the land, and it's insanity. So basically, bottom line, if they prove to me that Palestine existed as a country, then we may say they are entitled to something. But up to this point, they are not entitled to anything because Palestine never existed. It was just a colonial entity created by the British. And even Jewish people were called Palestinians during that period of time, which was about 25 years. And the Jewish people earned their independence against that colonial power. But the Arabs and Palestine is just the state of failure. This is what it is. It's the Arab state of failure that was not able to accomplish what the Jewish people accomplished in that land because they have been blinded by their hatred. And today they continue with the same strategy, with the same energy. So with that said, the two-state solution does not apply, not in the near future. There could be any other solution that would keep the security of Israel and the security of the Arab communities in Judea and Samaria, and that can be achieved. There could be an economical solution that can be achieved. They could be helped in education, in other areas of life, in infrastructure. I am not against that. I actually advise that be done, but I don't want a revolution by the name of Palestine. This Palestinian ideology that actually is not seeking a solution. It's not a two-state solution. It's more of like the two-state problem. It's because they're out for a problem. If they wanted a solution, they would have taken the solution in every opportunity that was given to them. And this is their lie. So today, I think we are done with this. We don't want this revolution that has been sacrificing children, Jewish children and Arab children. In the morning, they slaughter Jewish children for revenge, and in the evening, they slaughter their own children for propaganda. So enough of this madness. This what so-called revolution by the name of Palestine must come to an end. This Palestinian cause must die. This false identity, if they don't want to reshape it in a realistic way that can actually coexist somehow with not only Israel, but also the other surrounding countries, that includes Jordan and Egypt, then we don't want it. We should fight against it with everything that we have.
What is your feeling about Qatar?
Qatar has been part of the problem, not part of the solution. They create the chaos. Then it's like someone who creates a virus, then would provide the vaccine. But you created the problem originally. You're complicit in this. You should be held accountable. Hamas leadership has been on your soil for how many years? You empower them. You give them immunity. You give them funds. They committed the genocide on October 7, as you were watching. And today, Qatar thinks that they are doing Israel a favor. Qatar has been a part of the problem, and from day one, I urged the Israeli leadership to assassinate all Hamas leaders on the Qatari soil. But I don't know what's wrong with these people who are in charge. They have the power, they have the capacity. What do I want to do with Ismail Haniya's sister in Gaza? Why not take his head? This is the adequate response to those criminals who committed genocide and who endangered the entire region. They destroyed Gaza. They put civilians in harm's way while they're sitting in the Four Seasons, protected by Qatar. Well, Qatar should have learned the lesson. I would have never accept them as mediators because they are not fair. They are not honest. They are manipulating Israel. They deceived Israel. They should be punished for the crimes they have committed. Everything happened also under the Egyptian watch. First of all, how can Egypt explain having American weaponry that meant as an aid to the Egyptian army that was found in Hamas tunnels with the serial numbers on it? How could they explain that? Did they sell the American ammunition to terrorists? And how much the United States give Egypt annually in military aid? How much the United States taxpayer had to give Egypt or from the taxpayer money over the years? And why the US government is not applying pressure on Egypt? Supposedly an ally. And all the tunnels that Hamas smuggled the weapons was under their watch. Then we had the humanitarian crisis, which the natural way was open the border, get the most vulnerable civilians out of the picture to the Egyptian side. So Israel could eradicate Hamas without keeping the human shield card in Hamas' hands. This was the most logical thing to do from day one. But Egypt insisted that they did not to kill the Palestinian cause or liquidate the Palestinian cause. So they wanted the Palestinian cause to continue at the expense of humanity, of children, of civilians, if there's such thing, by the way, as civilians. So now the thing is, why didn't they take their responsibility? In war, there is no political borders, especially when people were dying. The war against Hamas was inevitable because there was no way around it. The fact that Hamas used civilians as human shields doesn't mean that they were immune to retaliation. And Israel had no other choice but to go in one of the most difficult wars of our time, that no modern army is prepared for such mission. As Israel was still mourning October 7, had to send their foot soldiers to die in Hamas booby traps, and the entire Gaza Strip functioning as a death trap. Who wants to do this? So Egypt could have played, I don't want to say a moral role. It's an obligation, but they abandoned their responsibility. They turned a blind eye as Hamas smuggled all the weapons, just the same as Qatar. They have been complicit in this crime. Of course, Israel did not want to risk the peace agreement, which is simply ink on paper, but it is. So the situation is devastating, and Egypt, Qatar, the rest of the world now, I include even the United States government, have been part of this problem.
Do you think the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia could convince some of the Muslim world to be more moderate? Or do you think are they just playing along? What's the status right now of the Abraham Accords, by the way?
First of all, we need to ask ourselves, is Saudi Arabia a moderate country to begin with? In Mecca, non-Muslims are not even allowed to enter the city of Mecca all year around. It's a crime. It's punishable by the Saudi law. So as long as they have this, what you call it, segregation and apartheid and discrimination, how can they be trusted? They're not even trusted with their own women and their own children to trust them as a counterpart. But I don't know. In the world of diplomacy and politics, I'm not a diplomat. I will never be. So I don't know their calculations and how much they choose to compromise with the devil. Saudi Arabia is not Israel's friend. Saudi Arabia has interest. This is why they have been tempted by the Abraham Accords. And in my opinion, those accords are not fair to Israel, even though Israel would accept them to start building bridges with the Arab world, which would be great. But in my opinion, and that's personal opinion, that has to be established on the right foundations. Otherwise, it's going to bear bad fruit. In my opinion, whoever is going to be the next president, and if they want to carry on post-war and have a rule of Saudi Arabia and the Arab Emirates, I don't know who else would be involved. It has to be on a new foundation. Like the Abraham Accord need to be rewritten now based on the new reality that would take Israel's security into consideration as priority number one. And any force that is going to come and say, no, but a two-state solution is a condition, then I wouldn't consider them as partner in this process. And I would wait until they are ready. They will have to choose between Israel or Iran. And the Saudis know that Israel is not their enemy. The Saudis know that Iran would kill, wipe out the Sunni world, uproot it completely. This is what they have been doing since the day of Ali, Hassan, and Hussein. They're out for revenge. They don't want the Sunnis to be in charge. They consider themselves the rulers of the Muslim world. And the Saudi Arabian family is a threat to the Iranians. So the Saudis, if they want to wait for the Islamic regime, the Islamic revolution in Iran to take over the region, then they will continue to oppose Israel. But if they don't want that to happen, then they need to cooperate with Israel, come to the table and actually apologize to Israel for all the funding of terrorism throughout the years. Then acknowledge that Israel is a partner, is a peace partner, is a great neighbor, and acknowledge the advanced technology, the advanced every field of life. That includes religion, by the way. Then once they see Israel for what it is, I am sure Israel will help the Sunni world in a way that is beyond their imagination. Because before Sunni, Shia, Islam, there was a rich Arab culture prior to that. And I don't think Israel has a problem with the Arabians. And if I see the future, I don't see a future between Israel and any Islamic entity in the region. I see the future between Israel and the Arabians, Israel and the Persians. Those are ethnic groups. They are flexible. They are culture. They're way before Islam. And I think they have the capacity to adapt and modernize. So the Abraham Accords, they were in the past, I think they need adjustment. I don't think Israel should accept them the way they are at this as is. Eventually, after the war and after the dust of this war come down and people look back with more rationality, they're going to realize the damage the Islamists created and what so-called Palestinian revolution brought to the Middle East. They are the root cause of all this problem. Chaos in the region. So once the Arabians, the Persians come to realize this, and I hope at some point there would be a unity between Persians and Arabians and Israel, then we are talking about a new world that would inspire the rest of humanity on new basis, amazing basis. So I have not lost hope, even though I take the stand that I take against Islam. And I say it's like, I cannot trust. You identify as a Muslim, I have a problem with you because you don't know who you are. So, and this is very extreme stand, but I have no other choice. Until we bring things back to order and back to balance, my stand will continue like this, as extreme as this, as a counter force. Because we cannot allow hundreds of millions of people to believe that they have the right to decide who has the right to exist and who doesn't. This is insanity. It's madness. It's not only about Israel. It's not about the Jewish people. This is about the global security, and those people who took it too far. It's not about 1,500 people who were killed on October 7. I'm concluding. It's not about that. It's about the nature of the attack that happened and legitimizing, normalizing such an attack would lead to a global chaos. I hope that they will understand this at some point.
So it might take a tremendous amount of bloodshed before they come to that point.
Yep.
But Mosab, if there's anything in my life that I have done that I am as proud as of, it's basically helping in some way to save your life. As you know, I adore my husband, adore my children, adore my grandchildren, but I adore you as much, and you will always be like a son to me. And God
Thank you.
bless you.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.